Alright, so I don't know how this is going to work. I'm in the car right now at Sonic in the drive-thru. Try not to eat out that much when it comes to fast food, but this really got me thinking about another topic that I just keep seeing a ton about. Really hits home here in Nashville. We have some casual dining headquartered restaurants here, and we keep seeing in the news, is casual dining dead? Is it dying? Definitely experiencing some problems. Do I think it's dead? No, but I do want to talk a little bit about some false blames that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing a little bit of blame out there on deliveries taking over, and the consumer has so many choices. And to be honest with you, yes, technology has really increased availability of different brands and different food options for different consumers, but they've always really had a breadth of choices. Now, just instead of driving, they can simply hop on an app or call in, and that's great, but that's not really something that I would put blame on for casual dining. And then I've seen a little bit more of kind of the shopper has changed, right? The consumer has changed, and that is true. That really takes me back to my point that, casual dining's issue is not the consumer, it's really the business model. And what I mean by that is the business model for casual dining really didn't evolve as the consumer did. So casual dining has really had a very historic heyday for a very long time, up until maybe about 3 years ago, where we started to see a flat plateau in sales kind of across the board, and now we've seen some pretty steep declines actually for a large amount of well-known brands and chains. So blaming the model, this kind of goes back to maybe the downturn is where I think it started, the downturn of the economy. So think 2008, 9, 10, when people really just weren't out. They weren't spending on food. They were grocery shopping. They were living by budgets. It was a really rough time. Well, let's say the disruptors, let's call them that for just this video's purpose. Let's call them Applebee's and Chili's. They came out with these discount options for their menus. You'll probably remember them. They're still out there now. 2 for $20s, 3 for $15s. I mean, for a while there, they kind of got ridiculous, and they were really smart, actually. They got people back out spending because the money wasn't very different from what it was costing to feed their family at home. So you got people out buying, spending, and sales really started to pick up, and they rode that for a very long time. The issue with that was that they didn't evolve that model as the economy picked back up. So food cost started to rise as the economy was picking back up. So the cost of all their products was rising, the sales tax was rising, employee wages were rising, and they didn't really have that built into their pricing structure. So you had a lot of issue with that because you were training the consumer for such a long time to come to you for that discount for an all-right experience. People, consumers were letting a mediocre experience really slide because they were getting cheap food at a neighborhood spot or restaurant, and that was all good and great. Now what you had was investors, as costs were rising on the back end, you had investors and owners of these chains not seeing the profits they were used to. This is a big issue for them, right? So how do you still see those same profits without trying to back out of what you've kind of established as your business model for consumers? Well, the only options were to cut costs in other areas. Now, this is things kind of on the back end, but wages, things like cleaning your supplies. They were trying to find cheaper food costs, and that's where you get in this little limbo area of your quality of experience and food start to decline. And the consumer will not let that slide. The consumer has really taken notice, and some of the restaurants that they were going with their parents and that they were taking their children to weren't offering that same experience. You had workers who are working longer shifts for less money. They're tired. They're not actually interacting as well as they would normally with their guests. And we're talking about the second most important face of your brand, which are your employees, that interaction that they have. Consumers are going to let mediocre food slide if their experience was superb. They will not let mediocre food slide if they had to wait a long time, if the food came out, it was cold, it was undercooked, whatever it was. They're not going to forgive that. That's a one and done. Maybe you'll get 2 visits out of them and say, hey, it was a fluke, I've been there before, they've got good food. Not to get off on a tangent, but these are what was happening. And then you have the evolution of delivery that comes in, right? Delivery comes in, and for the longest time, casual dining has said, hey, call it in, we'll run somebody out to your car. We'll have a little drive up and pick up window. I don't know what that was all about. It was kind of the baby step, a toe in the pool of trying to offer a little bit more convenience. But delivery was always that next iteration. However, the mentality is to drive traffic to that store. So the reason they didn't adapt into delivery and those other processes was the methodology that we're going to drive traffic to that store. So if feet aren't coming in, we're not going to see the sales per ticket that we're used to. So you kind of had 2 things clashing up against each other there that was keeping casual from moving into these consumer evolutions. But now, with their business models, you have consistency across the whole brand, which means that your restaurant in Albuquerque, Santa Monica, Miami, they're all the exact same. There's no differentiation. Now we have a little bit of an issue, because as the consumer has changed, we've really started to look at healthy foods. We've looked at local sourcing, and people are kind of wanting that local vibe. They want to take pride in saying, hey, this is, Jacksonville, or this is Greenville's yada yada restaurant, and we're sourcing products from here, and there's a really good vibe. There maybe is a mural up on the wall. Who knows what it is, but people like that flavor. So your mom and pop shops, they're going in there, wife, husband, 2 daughters and a son, and they're working full time, and they're just absolutely killing the casual dining restaurant to the side of them. Why is that? Well, has a lot to do with that flavor that I just talked about, but also they're sitting there interacting with their guest 24/7. And I don't mean just being present and having a conversation. I mean really opening their ears and making small pivots and changes to maybe menu, to offerings, to the way that they provide, to the way ordering is being taken. So chains are going to have a lot more competition as those restaurants really take off and win for all the right reasons, and that's offering a better experience to their consumer. Now, the good news is that casual dining have deep pockets, and that's the truth of it. They have the resources to make the necessary changes. Now, can they add small flavors to all of their locations? No. And is it the right move? Probably not. But what they do need to really take a look at is changing that model on the back end. You know what? It's time maybe that we stop doing the 2 for $20s and maybe get a little backlash. I don't know. But you're going to have to take people out of that mentality so that you can really actually have profit built into your pricing on the front end. Because if you're not going to be able to spend the marketing dollars that you need, the advertising dollars you need to drive that traffic in, you're definitely not going to see the profits. You're going to see losses on top of losses. So the only way I think that you can really combat that is by trying to look more at the model from a financial standpoint, and then retroactively going back and making the right changes for the consumer. But I just thought I would touch on that. I know I rambled a little bit. I'm a little scatterbrained here. I still have my food in front of me trying to eat. But I'd love to hear your feedback. If you think I'm dead wrong, let me know. You think I'm spot on? Love to hear it. Either way, I hope this sparks a conversation. I hope it makes you think about things in a little different way, because I'm seeing a lot of, like I said, false blame out there, and I don't think that